it's my job to, in a short period of time, be able to see how I can enhance how you view yourself in a positive light through your hair, because that's just my job. all of the inward inside work, I love to have the discussion about it, but at the end of the day, the client has to do that. The client has to do that inner work in order to get to that place. They don't have the lock envy, and they are okay with their locks being fuzzy or unraveling or not looking the way they thought it would.
So was there a time that you even remember not having locks?
No. That's actually, I often think about that, to be honest. There is not a single moment where I have a memory of myself not having my locks. That was a very long time ago. I'm getting old.
Or
I
why?
was four or five. And yeah, my mom gave me some 2 strands, like she does all the time. She takes them down, puts them back in every 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And we just had an obligation, and she was unable to take them back down. And my hair was like, gotcha. So she tried to take it down when we were able to get back around to doing it. And my hair just, it had already started to bud. So she just kind of let it do its thing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
did anyone in your family have locks at the time?
Everyone in my family had locks at one point. Growing up, my mom, my dad, and my brother had locks.
Okay.
Only recently did they all get rid of their locks, except for me.
Really?
I am the last one standing.
So that bears the question then, have you ever
Mhm.
considered not being
Mhm.
locked?
I have. I feel like at 40, something magical is going to happen, and I'm going to want to cut my hair in this rebellious fit and embrace what is underneath this. And
Yeah.
I feel like I'm edging closer because I have an undercut that no one ever really sees, because it's really
Oh,
just for me,
okay.
to see how comfortable I'll be with like most of my hair missing, because my undercut goes up pretty high actually.
Okay.
But I don't know, the closer I get to 40, the more I'm like, girl, you are tripping, you're not about to cut your hair. I kind of want it to be where, like, I don't know, it's got to be like a major situation happening to where I just want to go through a metamorphosis or something, because my hair is very important to me, and not so important where it's attached to my identity,
Mhm.
but important to me to where it does make me feel better about myself. And because I don't know myself in any other form, I am very nervous and a little bit afraid to take a step to venture in a different direction, especially because I have absolutely no experience with natural hair. I'm just like, I don't even know what to do with this. Do I, do the sponge thing? Do I put
Right.
some curl cream in it? I don't know. So, yeah.
Wow. So tell me about the decision to do the undercut then. Where did that come from?
You want me to be honest? I will be honest with you. I did my undercut because my back, baby,
Mm.
my kinky buds back there, my mom used to call them kinky buds. They just don't listen. When I do updos, it's just always a piece of hair that just doesn't stay in the lock. It's fuzzy, and I don't like to look at it. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not about to layer you with a bunch of product. I'm just going to cut you off. We're going to cut you off. And I had a very short one, and then I fell in love with that look. And then one day I just was like, I want to make it a little bit higher because I wanted to do a design. And I should have waited till I got to the barbershop, and I did not. I took scissors to the back of my head, and I cut too much. So by the time I got to the barber, he's like, girl, what did you do to your head? It's too high. And now I got to take it up to level it out. And I was just like, just do whatever you have to do. It's just hair. It's okay.
Wow. So then how did you decide to get into doing hair, doing locks?
Oh, that's a whole nother story. So when I was 11, 10, my father got an opportunity to move to Barbados. He's from Barbados, so he got an opportunity to just kind of go back home. Really his dream job. He was able to work for the government, um, Natural Culture Foundation, as an instructor. Um, and so at around 15, so the school system works a little bit different in Barbados. It's um, mirrored off of the Europe, the European school system, the British school system. So from 11 to 15, it's a combination of middle school and high school.
Okay.
So by 15, I graduated out of high school and I was ready to go to college. So, my parents were like, oh, you should, focus on getting a job and having a little bit of experience in the real world. And so my family is they operate on a village mentality. And so one of the young ladies that was very close to my family at the time, her name was Hajar, and she had a natural hair salon. She offered services for natural hair, and she also offered services for locks. However, her main focus was locks. And my father was able to get me an interview, and she hired me. And I mean, the rest is really kind of history. I could go in the detail, but I was 15. I got hired as a wash girl inside of this lock salon in Barbados. And I was very grateful because Hajar took me under her wing and she taught me the first things to know about working and operating a salon environment and catering to customers. And then she really taught me the first things I learned about locks itself. So I owe it to her. She is the reason I'm even here.
So speaking of, I really want to
Mhm.
get into that part of it because I know when I connected with you at first, you had been you had gone through and done a lot of training and you were just
Mhm.
I just got the professional vibe from you.
Mhm.
But I want to ask you first about your confidence because you started young with locks and you started at a time where locks are not as well embraced as they are now.
Mhm.
But when I met you, let me just tell you what I've written so far in the book, right? Because
Okay.
I wrote a little bit. We'll see if it makes it to the final cut, but uh,
Okay.
and it's funny because your hair is similar to the way it was. I said she wore long traditional locks cascading over a colorful head wrap and spoke eloquently with a soft voice that exuded a firm confidence I was not familiar with. So
Hmm.
I would like for you to speak to that confidence and at what
Mhm.
point in your lock journey did that develop for you? Or was it
Mhm.
always there or has it like grown?
Right.
Tell me about that.
I would say that the confidence really began to develop when I was living in Barbados. And one of the main reasons it did is because I had so much physical representation um, to look to. There were so many men and women in Barbados that had locks, and they were beautiful, and they had positions of power,
Mm,
and they had positions of leadership while having locks. And unlike in the United States, like I was used to, they didn't have to sacrifice their hair in order to get those positions of power. And them having locks didn't affect them being invited into spaces.
Yeah.
And so I think just living in Barbados really kind of planted a seed of empowerment about my hair, because I don't want to, I want to really choose my words, because the United States then, back in the 90s, um, it just was a different experience. And the discrimination that I saw and experienced myself just in the public school system, it was just such a metamorphosis to go from people making fun of my hair in elementary school to being in high school and in college, and people like, how'd you get your hair to grow like that? And it's so beautiful. And I want my hair like that. And I'm going to ask my mom if I could start my locks. And it was just a completely different change in environment. So I owe a lot to just my experience living in Barbados, um, and the inclusion that was there as well. So when you speak to how I gained my confidence, 100%, a lot of it was basically just growing up on an island with people that looked like me. And then I would say about 35% of that came from being back in the United States and seeing how many people had adapted um, locks as their lifestyle, and not just as a trend or a hairstyle, but as a journey and an experience with themselves. And then hearing, in particular, one of my medical assistant teachers say when I was in school that most successful people, it's 25% skill and 75% confidence. And so when I started my business, you know, I'm a very shy person, actually. Most people wouldn't think that about me, but I'm very quiet. I'm very observant at first. And I don't have a lot to say because most of what I say is on the inside. But when I decided that I wanted to start my business, speaking is a big part of what I have to do when I meet a new client, when I am kind of, you know, transitioning them into being on this journey with me. So I went through my phase, my years of, what I have to say is I was lucky because I was able to start in my home. So I was able to transition from a salon environment, being under supervision of that master loctician, and then moving to the United States and now having to figure out how to maneuver running my own business. And I was able to set up shop inside of my parents' house in my bedroom upstairs. It was the smallest space you could ever think of someone to be in. It was barely big enough for you to kind of stand up and turn around and really just have space to stretch. But I made it work. I made it work for probably 2 to 3 years before I ventured out of that space. But being in that small space forced me to have to be able to control the environment. And controlling the environment had a lot to do with my demeanor. And because I'm such a quiet person anyway, I was always very soft spoken. They always had to be like, "What'd you say? I didn't hear you," even in such a small space. So once I was able to venture out into a larger space, I think that a couple things: the fact that the business was growing, the fact that people trusted me, and then before I ventured out into my bigger space, I took the time to invest in myself and go travel and take classes. And being among the teachers that I learned from, their level of confidence when they just walked in the room, it was really, I was kind of like starstruck a little bit. I fangirl. That's just what I do. Because I just think that we need to give people their flowers. And so seeing them be so confident when they are teaching, when they're explaining, when they're interacting, it was something that I wanted to also have when I ran my business. So just being able to watch the examples of the people that I chose to learn from and then incorporate that back into my business, I would say that's where I got my confidence from. And then also understanding that I don't want anybody to walk all over me either.
Mhm.
I want to always be in control of my environment and not just appear in control. So a lot of that had to do with my tone of voice and my delivery. And and really 80% of that had to do with my knowledge. I love that you talk about, me sounding super confident, but to be honest, I'm confident in what I know.
Mhm.
So when I speak, I feel like the confidence you hear is really manufactured based on just what I know I'm talking about.
Mhm.
I've spent the time, I've dedicated the hours, I've gotten the training, I've learned from the master teachers. And so when I talk about something or when I'm explaining something to you, I'm confident about that. And then I've been on the journey
Yeah.
since I was a little girl. So I know what I'm saying to you is true because I've experienced it and I've walked it, which just makes it easier for me to explain and describe it to other people.
Yeah. So speaking of, because my initial experience with you was a consultation, and
Mm-hmm.
I walked away from that conversation. I've already told you this, but I walked away from that like having so much respect for locks and people who wear them, and
Mm-hmm.
also knowing that I wasn't ready. I was
Yeah.
ready to like for the lifestyle, right? Like, and so now I'm sure you have people from all walks of life who are starting
Mm-hmm.
locks and
Mm-hmm.
coming to this lifestyle. Like, how do
Mm-hmm.
you manage, um, for example, when you notice that people are having a difficulty trusting the process, um,
Right.
or when it's a hair envy situation and people aren't even looking at themselves. They're looking at other people trying to do their own hair, like
Yeah.
how do you deal with that?
Um, I definitely think my psychology classes from college come into play because a lot of it has to do with just tapping into that individual, which is why I have my consultation process. Because in the consultation process, despite it being maybe, a maximum of 20 minutes tops,
Mhm,
I am able to get an understanding of how you feel about yourself.
mhm,
And from understanding how you feel about yourself, I'm able to help influence how you will feel about your hair.
mhm,
Now, I have no influence after you go home and you are influenced by the outside world and social media. But what I try to imprint on my potential clients is accepting what they see in the mirror. So I do a lot of my consultations with the client facing the mirror, being forced to look at yourself. When we, you know, form the example lock and you understand, okay, this is what a two strand will look like. This is what a cone coil will look like. This is what an interlock would look like. This is what an instant lock would look like. Try to envision this on yourself. But then also what mainly what I focus on, because usually people don't run into what you're talking about until after they've already started. Um, I try to focus in our appointments on the unique things that represent their own hair and themselves. So instead of trying to get a style like what you see on socials, let's focus on how your hair cascades around your face. And let's focus on enhancing those features by manipulating your hair so that you can have a journey and an experience that's unique to you. I can't, as much as I would love to be able to whip this hairstyle up on everybody that sits in my chair, your length, your density, the fall of your locks, all of that creates variables. So it's my job to, in a short period of time, be able to see how I can enhance how you view yourself in a positive light through your hair. because that's just my job. all all of the inward inside work, I love to have the discussion about it, but at the end of the day, the client has to do that. The client has to do that inner work in order to get to that place where they don't have the lock envy and they are okay with their locks being fuzzy or unraveling or not looking the way they thought it would. You know, our hair is unique to each individual person. So I'm I try to I this to be honest, I try to keep it 100. I don't like I want to be 100% honest with you. I'm not able to predict what's going to happen, but I promise you that I'm going to be there every step of the way so that we can figure out ways to work around the mishaps. That's what I can do for you.
So talk to me then about traditional locks. And
Hmm.
obviously you have traditional locks, and that's what you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So when the popularity of, micro locks, tiny locks, sister locks
Yeah.
that came up, like,
Yeah.
I guess tell me just kind of about the difference of those two worlds and how you do or don't separate them, what's
Hmm.
different, what's not, whatever your thoughts are on that.
Okay. So, you know, micro locks and sister locks and then traditional locks. Initially, it's I like to say we're all in the same book,
Okay.
but we're just in different chapters.
Okay.
Sister locks are a trademarked um, technique in which there is a particular pattern, structure, routine, regimen that's involved when you start that process. And when it became super popular, my main concern was that people understood that they should be being serviced by someone who is competent in that world. And that there is a difference between the sister locks, the micro locks, and the traditional locks. And respecting the different worlds was just as important as choosing the person to service you. So um, I love the fact that sister locks and micro locks are actually much more popular than traditional locks. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. I would never start that process because I don't have the patience. However, um, I think for a lot of women in particular, it really provided a safe alternative to going natural
Mm.
because it gave them a familiar feel of their natural hair.
Mm.
Sometimes when you transition over into traditional locks, the change in the shape and size and volume and especially of losing that volume when it comes to black hair, some women are just not prepared to take that step, take that leap and make that change. And I think sister locks and micro locks just provided a sense of comfort and safety while you're still able to I never like to say go natural. I like to say return natural. Um, so while you're able to return natural and just have a different type of experience with your hair. So, I mean, I love both, but I'm kind of biased because I got traditional locks. But I love looking at sister locks. I definitely don't have the patience though to service sister locks, and I don't have the education to service sister locks. So, um, always always emphasizing how important it is to make sure you just align yourself with an expert in that field.
Yeah. So now at this point in your
Mhm.
career, because you've been in this game for a minute,
Ooh, a minute,
um,
girl.
because that was 2019 when I first connected with
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Um, you've gained some traction in terms of people wanting to hear what you have to say about
yeah,
blocks and maintaining them and establishing them even, I don't know.
yeah.
But tell me about that stewardship that you have with the people who come to you for support and information. And I
Hmm.
mean, I'm sure it's changed over the years, right? Like
Yeah.
that stewardship, that because it's not so much, because there are so many people out there of interest, or who are interested now, like you've got to show up differently, or just tell me more about that.
Um, I'm gonna be honest. There were times when I thought exactly what you were saying, that because of the exponential growth of my social media presence, that I would have to show up differently.
Mhm.
However, I really want to stay aligned with my core values. And my core values, when I ventured on social media, which I think was like back in 2013, maybe. So I haven't been on socials very long. This might be like 10 years now that I've had it. Um, it was always really, when I first started using socials, of course, we use it to advertise. I wanted to create traction for the business and be able to present to people, lookers, because most of the time people, they're just looking. Um, I wanted to present to them what I can do and show them my strengths. And as socials in particular, as Instagram has grown, it's transitioned from a photo based platform to a video based platform. And the responsibility of, for the lack of the better word, knowing your stuff
Mhm.
has changed,
Yeah.
because being able to create a document, post it, and people just read it and go on about their day is 100% different from going live and having people ask questions in real time and then expect answers from you. And they're not just looking for, they're look they're looking for someone who is an expert in what they need. And so it the responsibility for me has changed from 2013 to 2023. I feel responsible in a sense of knowing exactly what I'm talking about every time I get on my platform. Now, my goal is never to be right all the time, because as long as you're doing something, as long as you're practicing, you have to know that you're always still learning. Um, I'm grateful enough to be connected with people who've been in the industry for 30 years. I mean, that's as long as I've been alive. So having access to mentors like that and connecting with them, and then connecting with their audiences who come from the Jet Black magazines and the natural hair magazines in the 90s, where locks were really just making an entrance.
Right.
And natural hair was really just becoming widely accepted. I think the dynamic has changed, and I don't try to show up differently than I did in 2013. I'm still my quirky, funny, keep it real all the time. However, there are moments where it's time to get serious and time to understand and know your craft. I love that social media gives me the space to both educate but also build community. And because it has changed so much, I love the fact that the community doesn't have to just be built in person. I can now build it with people in different parts of the world. And that that is just so mind blowing for me, because I just never thought that I'd be in a position to. I mean, it's 85,000 people. Like, that's insane. That's insane. I probably know a good 5,000 people. Maybe I know like 75% of the people on my Facebook. Like, I've met them. But to be a voice to that many people, I think it definitely, the stewardship and responsibility that's there. I don't think that everybody feels the same way that I do about it. However, I'm not one of those people that are looking for virality. I'm not interested in going viral. I have no desire to. I'm interested in creating impact, and I'm interested in creating change. My ultimate goal is impacting my community. So if one of my classes can help produce, you know, if I have a class full of 20 and just 1 to 2 people out of that class go and start a business and become successful and can create wealth for their family, that was the point.
Yeah.
You know, initially my platform was to teach other locticians, and now my platform has grown into just like this community-based hub for people who just have locks and who just have questions, because their locticians are stylists and they are not deep diving into the education realm, so they can't answer the questions that they have. So I love the fact that you can go to who you want to go to because they're bomb at doing your hair, and then you can hop online and you can get the information that you need to have a healthy journey,
Right.
because that's important too. Yeah.
So tell me about that. So one of the things that you said is your goal for your hair is for it to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like now, and what has it looked like in the past? Like, has it changed? Like, how is it
100%.
evolved? Like,
A
let's hear it.
100%. If you would have asked me when I was 15 if I cared about healthy hair, I probably would have looked at you like you was crazy. Like, "Child, I'm trying to dye my tips. I need a fresh retwist every week. I need to be fly for school." Um, so 100%, it has definitely changed. And that's why I feel super empowered to talk as well, because I've come from the stage of it just being a fashionable thing. You know, I've always had my locks, so I've never looked at my locks as a statement at all. It's really just a part of me, and it's important for me to look well kept, as my grandmother has always said. And that has definitely that impacted how I saw myself. So despite the physical representation in Barbados, one thing I did notice about people that had locks is that their hair was always done.
Mm.
Always, always manicured, always twisted, always styled, beautiful, gorgeous hair. But I think one of the things that made that easy is that we were just living in a climate that helped create an environment to produce healthy hair. So most of the time you just got lucky. You had good genes and you had nice humidity in the air, good sunlight. The food was just better. So internally you're feeding your body the right things. So that just the variables and the dynamics they were just different in Barbados. But as I aged, I want to say probably around 22, I started to just look at my hair differently. I was working in corporate America, kind of in that arena. I worked in hospitality, and they always would ask me, when I do my hair, "Oh, did you get new braids?" Or, something like that, something crazy, just completely left field. Like, clearly these are not braids, but okay. It wasn't ever anything that bothered me because people talked about my hair my whole life. So at 22, there was a memo that went out to all of the associates. And in the memo, it talked about two things. It talked about being well kept and always looking manicured. And it talked about the length of your hair. Now you can imagine, by the time I was 22, starting my locks at 5, my hair was pretty long.
Mhm.
I mean, it was down my back. And they said that your hair cannot go past your shoulders. So of course I was like devastated, because
Yeah.
I'm not going to cut my hair to keep this job. But that's always been a reoccurring issue in my life. When I was in the dance arena, doing commercials, singing, being on stages, my hair was always a problem. the length of it was always a problem. I couldn't hide it under wigs, and I wasn't able to do the styles that the other dancers could do so that I could be uniform so I wouldn't get certain jobs. But it was just something that I learned to be okay with. If you couldn't accept my hair, then that job just wasn't for me. But moving back to the United States, I needed this job. I could not lose this job. And so at 22, I conformed and I cut my locks. I cut my locks to the length of my shoulders, and I absolutely had a panic attack when I did. It was just a moment for me. I was really sad for a really long time. I felt like I betrayed myself. Um, and then my hair just did something really crazy. It just grew back out really fast. So I think within the next year, it was back past my shoulders again. And they sent that memo out again. So at this point, I'm like, I'm feeling a little attacked. Is this really about me?
Right.
So at 23, yeah, I was 23. I decided that I just wanted to have healthier hair because between 15 and 19, about 16 and 19, I joined a band in Barbados. And so we were performing every week. So I would do my hair every week. And by the time I was, 23, of course, things like alopecia and traction, abrasion play a part. And for Black women, it's just something that we deal with. But I started to notice that my hairline was thinning. And I was like, oh, no, baby, I'm not even 25. We're not about to do this. So, I got in my book, I got in my bag, and I started researching. I started doing a lot of looking into how to create a healthier environment for my hair to flourish. So, my mother all my life had covered her locks. And I always be like, why you always covering your hair? Nobody ever gets to see how beautiful your hair is. My mother had full, beautiful, luscious locks. And she would just be like, I cover them to protect them. I cover them to protect from, the environment, dust particles, things that are flying in the air, people's energy, like, going from hot to cold and cold to hot. Things that I watched my mom do all my life, but I never paid attention until I hit my 20s. So when I started to incorporate those things into my life and understanding which oils help create, growth and development and stimulant, I watched my hair return. And I was like, so this is all I had to do was mix this and this and cover it every now and then and sleep in a bonnet and all of these things that I was learning after having my hair for 20 something years. Well, at that time, not 20 something years yet, but 18, 19 years. Like, I saw how adding those things started to help. So now at 33, I am not pressed to constantly have a retwist. I don't even retwist my hair now in my older age. And it's not because I don't want to be well kept or manicured. It's that because I just have a new acceptance of myself that twisting my hair and styling my hair doesn't mean it's well kept. The way that my hair grows out of my head is well kept. This is what you get. This is a part of me. And so I just have a better sense of security and confidence, and my desires for my hair are just different now in my 30s than they were in my 20s. My 20s, it was just visual display, really. And in my 30s, it's being grounded and being at peace and eating better and my internal overall health. And so I'm understanding through learning in classes that what I put in my body affects my hair. Yeah. I'm understanding that as I age, my hormones change and that affects my hair. When I became a mother at 24, I learned really quickly that a change in your body and your hormonal stages doing breastfeeding and childbirth changes your hair. So it became less about how the outside world saw me and so much more about how I see myself. And so I want to say maybe between like 24 and now, I've been walking that look in the mirror and accept what you see journey when it comes to my hair. So I'm just so much more confident to walk into a corporate boardroom with fuzzy roots and still feel confident enough to present what I need to say and understand that my hair doesn't distract from what I'm saying to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%. It has changed from back then to now. I'm in a completely different place, in a completely different place.
Right.
Which I think has helped me just as a loctician too, because I'm not money motivated. So I'm not telling you to sit in my chair every month to get your hair done. My motivations are different. I want your locks to last as long as you want them to last. And I know from experience that if you sit in this chair and you get your hair done every single month, you're going to hate me in about a year. So, you know, I love how different aspects have tied in to kind of what I do, but then also into just my personal experience with my own hair.
Right. So have you been able to watch that journey in other people
Mhm.
along this way?
A hundred
How is
percent.
that experience?
I have been, particularly a lot of my clients watching, especially the clients that have been with me for 5, 6 years, watching their desires um, to always present to the world, and now they are just in a place of acceptance with their hair. They, I really just got lucky that a lot of my clientele do not have locks for the trend. They started their locks because they wanted to experience their hair in a different way. And then through starting that process, now they're in a place where they want healthier hair. They want a healthier lifestyle all around. They're making healthier choices in different areas of their life. And it started with their hair. So that has been really interesting to just watch that transition. I love seeing my clients transition from starter locks, having to come in every month. And then once you get to year one, now I only see you 4 or 5 times a year. And I'm like, look at you. Aren't you growing up? Because they're understanding that I don't need to go get my hair groomed that often, that the way it's growing and how it's looking is 100% healthy. And as long as they do and incorporate the in-between salon visits, the hair's gonna be fine.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So this this journey that has
Mhm.
become your business
Yeah.
and I guess two-way impact
Hmm.
is sounds like a very full life.
It is a very fulfilling life. Um, Lots could be said in between there, but I just agree. It is it's a very fulfilling life. Uh, Back to what I said earlier, I'm not money motivated, but I used to be when I first started, because in your 20s, you think money means everything. And I think now I'm just in a place where I understand that my gift makes room for me.
Mm.
So I don't have to go chasing money because money isn't running. And I did a live recently with one of my mentors who I love dearly. His name is Stando Kafele. And he has been in the natural hair industry and has been a loctician for 30 years. And we had this debate segment where I talked about purpose over profit.
Mm.
And since I've just been walking in what I think is my purpose, which I have found through practice, which is education,
Yeah.
I have been able to generate profit in a way where I don't have to go chasing it. So just being at peace with my journey and my locks and my hair, I get to share that experience with other people. And I get to walk in my purpose by educating other locticians and helping them understand their clients.
Mhm.
And that walking in my purpose builds profit for me. So
Yeah.
I'm very full. Yes. I am very full.
Would you say that you have like a specialty or like an area that you feel you excel in
Mhm.
specifically when it comes to locks?
Um, Definitely crochet.
Okay.
Anything and everything crochet, which is a newer waved introduction. I want to say probably over the last 15 years. Um, I really love doing it. There was a moment where I didn't like it as much,
Hmm.
but that was because I didn't understand the technique, so I just kept stabbing and poking my fingers. But I've taken a lot more training and just learned from a lot more different people, and I love offering crochet because it's so helpful, especially to people who are trying to understand their hair and people who might be not feeling the best about their journey. Crochet, it's almost like the magic touch. So if I feel like traditionally a lot of what locks are is acceptance. And there aren't very many ways that locticians, when we're cultivating your locks, that we can change anything.
Mm.
You just have to, unfortunately, deal with whatever is happening until it sorts itself out. But with the introduction of crochet maintenance, you're able to manipulate the shape and the structure and elongate the locks if you don't like the short phase. You're able to add hair if you're feeling insecure about your length. It just opens up a door. And I think that for those who are not ready to deep dive into just being okay with going through that process, for those who need their hands held just a little bit longer,
Mhm.
just until they are comfortable, which I don't think anything is wrong with that.
Mhm.
Crochet has just been a super helpful tool to those individuals. And I love being able to provide that option to my clients and then teach that to other locticians because I mean, it opens the door
Mhm.
for you to just be able to serve your clientele so much better.
Right. So I've heard some stories about people who have used locks from, deceased family members or people that they
Mhm.
love, and have put them in their own hair. Is that something that you've done before? And tell me a little bit about that experience if you have.
To be honest, I just did it for the first time, probably like a week ago for a really close friend who lost her brother, and she wanted to put one of his locks in her hair. Um, and I will get the opportunity next week to do it for another close friend of mine who lost her mother. Um, she'll be adding it to her hair and to her son's hair. I don't really have an opinion on that. I think that that is along the lines of how someone chooses to honor that loved one that transitioned. Um, Again, because of crochet, I'm able to help soothe um, a bit of discomfort for that client, and then they can feel closer to their loved one. I don't think there's anything wrong with it because most of the natural Afro kinky hair, human hair that we get, that we add in for just regular styles or natural styles,
Mhm.
came from somebody.
Yeah.
They didn't just make it out of thin air. So I would feel more comfortable using the hair of someone I knew than just buying it from the store anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I know that that has been something that some people didn't even know was a thing.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so, you know, when you were talking about crochet, I was thinking, you're right. Like so many doors have been open, so many, you know, things are possible now because of this
Hmm.
technique.
Hmm.
So that's beautiful.
Yep.
Um, let's see. Ooh, you mentioned two of your inspirations along your
Yeah.
journey. Can you tell me more about that? And maybe if you have any, if that's kind of been a constant thing, or if it's changed over the years, or
So, you know what? Whoopi is just hilarious. I just love her, and I hope one day I get to meet her.
yeah.
Um, but seeing Whoopi with her locks, I think was just different because back in the 90s, you know, everything was so minimal. I just felt like the 90s were full of women who were just effortlessly beautiful. They didn't have to do too much. And you were really able to just see their natural selves. And Whoopi having locks in just the middle of all of that and being as successful as she became and hitting, you know, Hollywood screen with locks, that was just so huge for me to see that as a child because I mean, I was a kid. So it was one of those moments where, like, Mom, she has hair like me. You know, it was just so cool. And not only did she have hair like me, she was a Black girl. And she wasn't just a Black girl, she was a dark skinned Black girl. And she was on TV and she looked like me. That was huge. I don't think people really, I'm so thankful I grew up in the 90s because I don't think people really understand how huge of a deal that was. Now you can go in Target and you know, all the little advertisements and the pop-ups, everybody's got locks in there, you know, it's not a big deal anymore. But that was just something that you didn't see back in the 90s. And shoot, the 80s, because Whitney's uh Whoopi's kind of up there.
Yeah.
But Lauren Lauren was big for me because I love music and I always wanted to do music. And Lauren was the very first person that I saw who was mainstream outside of Tracy Chapman, who was just super famous in the country world, but nobody ever made it in like hip hop and R&B. And seeing that they accepted Lauren and that the world accepted Lauren and they didn't make her style it and they didn't make her retwist it and they didn't make her tame it. That was just, oh man, being a little girl, I can't even verbalize how that made me feel.
Yeah.
It was just, it was like watching magic happen on the screen. So those are definitely two of my inspos. Because you always saw the men. The men,
Mm.
there was men in hip hop, R&B, you know, that had locks. Yeah, that was just a normal thing. But the women, no, the women have their hair was pressed, or it was the sew-in, or it was straight, or it was the curly fro, but it was never locks. And Lauren was the first that I saw who I wanted to emulate. And she just changed the game for me. I was just like, one day I'm gonna do her hair. And now she don't even have locks no more, child. So, you know, it's just but that's okay because now you have, you know, people like Chloe and Halle, you know, who are doing their thing and showing how versatile locks can be and how they're not just one way. You don't have to be limited. If you miss a certain aspect of your natural hair, you're still able to express yourself in that way. It's just so beautiful. I just love that for them. They're such gorgeous women, and being able to be on a platform as large as they are and then look like they look, I just think
Yeah.
it's just now it's why it's mainstream and I kind of don't know what to do with myself because I'm like, oh, now y'all hip. We've been telling y'all, now you're hip. And I love that for us. I just hope that we still hold on to, and like, here's that stewardship and that responsibility that I feel like I hold. I just really hope that we hold on to the aspect of our culture that creates the acceptance around how our hair naturally grows. Because now I feel like the dynamic with locks is covering them up and still wearing like straight hairstyles, or covering them up and still wearing curly hairstyles, versus like something like I've done where I'm incorporating both those things without kind of sacrificing or conforming to what we know as this beauty norm and beauty standard. So hopefully, hopefully you don't change too much, but you just never know. You just never know. Because I didn't even think any of the stuff that I'm doing right now is possible, including, being online with you right now, being interviewed for your book. So that's just life, baby. I'm full. Like you said, I am full. I am.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate like you being a part of my natural hair journey and my lock journey. And just, I mean, there are so many things that you've already said that I've started writing. I'm like, okay, I think that's going in the book because of my experience with you and
Yeah.
understanding at a deeper level even what it means. Like there is a deeper meaning. And that
Yes.
does have a ripple effect from
Yes.
inside yourself even and then outside to other people. So and I mean you've seen that here already, but
Yeah.
I thank you so much for taking
Yeah.
the time to talk to me. And
So you make me feel so comfortable. And again, I was so excited. I couldn't believe this is really happening. And one, growing up, I my parents have books about locks
hmm,
in their house because they wanted us to feel beautiful about our hair, and they wanted us to be proud
yeah,
about our culture and about our heritage, and to just have an understanding of how we present to the world and how we want to present to the world. And you don't get to decide who you want to be if you don't have positive images of physical representations of yourself. So, you know, sis, I'm wishing you all the success in the world,
thank you.
and to be included in a project that you're creating about your experience with your locks, and then you interviewing other people, women, men, who've also had their own individual journeys. Like, I'm gonna be able to read that one day. I'm gonna be able to hand that to a little girl, and she's gonna be able to read that. And I just think that that's, again, we talk about that ripple effect. I just think that's so cool. I don't know. We oftentimes we talk about people that we don't have access to, people that we'll never meet. And I just think it's so important to give flowers to the people in your life that are doing impactful things. So flowers to you, sis. This is really cool.